Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Game Junk Podcast, episode 168, recording on the Sunday, October 15th, 2023. My name is Frank.
My name is Sean.
And my name is Andrew.
The video gamers.
A very special guest today, Mr. Jay Cheel.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for having me on the Game Junk Podcast. We were just talking about when I was on last, and I don't remember.
I feel
like it was Last of Us, but yeah, or maybe it was Frank. I remember talking about cameras on here at some point. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I think there was a couple other appearances where it wasn't like a specific review, but I can't really remember. Somebody out there will tell us, I'm sure.
Well, stay tuned. I'll share my thoughts once again on Red Dead Redemption 2 and Power Wash Simulator. So it's going to be a good show.
Jay Chill!
Oh, yeah.
And the reason Jay's here is because we're doing something a little different. We are reviewing a film, a powerful film called Gran Turismo from PlayStation Studios, directed by Neil Blomkamp. And we're also going to post this on the Film Junk feed this week as well, since it's a movie review. And Jay's got a jet for some high profile movie making business.
Wow.
And we're just going to get right into it, I think. So I'm not going to should I do Sean's typical? I don't have IMDb up. I can't read IMDb as good as Sean, but while I'm bringing it up, you should, if you want to watch the video, youtube.com/GameJunk, if you want to see all these beautiful faces talking about Gran Turismo.
Listen, Frank's not going to say it, but I'll say it. Subscribe, hit that smash button, do what you need to do to get the Game Junk podcast/video into the... I want to see you guys right alongside the Angry Video Game Nerd, Pat Contry, the NES Punk, Electric Playground.
We need to be more angry, I think. I mean, Frank's pretty...
No, Frank's pretty angry.
Look, I'm not always angry. I'm pretty positive. I
think Andrew needs to get more angry.
I'll try my best. We'll see.
Okay.
And I believe we've been calling it
stories.
Yeah. There's more. Oh, there's more. The painting stories from the stairs.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you said I believe we've been calling it.
Oh, we got to get into the monetization zone, Jay. That's what we're calling it. We're not in the monetization zone yet.
Can Jay get us that monetization?
We need that Jay Cheel bump right now. That's what we need. We need all the Jay Cheel followers from the all around the world to get us over that 1,000 subscriber threshold. That's what we need.
That DMZ, demonetization zone. You got to enter the DMZ and...
The world needs to know Jay's opinion on Gran Turismo. They want to know. So that's why he's here. So Gran Turismo is a movie produced by PlayStation Studios, directed by Neil Blomkamp, and starring David Harbour, Orlando Bloom, Archie Madekwe, and Digimon Hunsu, among others. And it's quite a ride. Jay, why don't you start us off? You're the guest. What did you think of Gran Turismo?
Well, I've never played Gran Turismo. I understand what it is. And I had this really weird urge after watching this movie to go out and buy Gran Turismo and to buy a little Sony MP3 player. I don't know why, but it was all right. It's very, to put it in Reed's language, ordinary in terms of its narrative. It's very much in the tradition of these types of sports narratives. Days of Thunder obviously comes to mind.
Just a little bit.
Little bit. And we talked about The Last Starfighter before as like a video game recruiting someone who goes to space to fight aliens. So it's similar to that in that way, but I got some, I can see why Neil Blomkamp would be attracted to this, the ability to include some video game visual language. And, you know, it looks very techy and modern and digital, but not always in a bad way. But it doesn't have a lot to it. Even the characters that I thought the performances were great, especially the lead, the who played the real kid. But the characters are so like they just kind of talk in cliches and platitudes, and you know where the story's going. There's nothing that really throws a curveball necessarily. Even the one thing that could throw a curveball also it happens in Days of Thunder. So
yes,
it's kind of a weird. I mean, I don't want to say it's like a pure commercial for like it's an interesting endpoint to a video game, and then to sell a video game, especially with the amount of time they spend at the beginning talking about what Gran Turismo is, and seeing like the car scanning and the sound recording of real cars. And I wondered as I was watching that, do I need this, or is this pure commercial? Like, would I need this information to get this story, to understand,
No.
what happens? It's pure like tech-gasm commercial, for Gran Turismo.
I don't know. To a general audience, I think there is like maybe an unawareness of what Gran Turismo even is. And it kind of sets the stage for how accurate, or supposedly how accurate of a simulator it is, which is key to the idea that the skills will transfer from virtual racing to real racing. So someone might not even know that that's a game to begin with.
Last Starfighter, that is not a game, and I got it. I got that it's a good training, but I know what you mean. But it's just, I don't know. It really indulges in the tech of the game itself. Is the people working on it, are those the real people at the beginning?
I believe so, yes.
I think the founder, like the like official Japanese guy, that is I can't remember his name, but that is the actual guy who created Gran Turismo. I don't know about everyone else.
It looks like an intense dude, just like hovering over the controls of his simulator. But I mean, other than that, it was watchable. It's too long. It's an hour and a half would have been nice, because there's not a lot of story there. I thought there were some interesting visuals for the racing, and when they were doing the pit stuff, like the really close up wide angle cameras that are right in on the action. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. I feel like we talked about this before on Film Junk, but Neil Blomkamp, I always put him alongside Gareth Edwards as like the two wonderkind effects guys who make really cheap but expensive looking films, and their careers have diverged in really weird ways. Especially with Blomkamp, he was going to do Halo, right? At one point.
Yep. I think he's
a traitor,
like a short or something, didn't he? I can't remember now. But
right.
Yeah,
a commercial.
Well, he recognized the sinking ship when he was on one, and he went from Xbox to the eventual winner of the console wars, Sony. So he might have just been making a strategic move.
That's an interesting. It's an interesting point. But then I was thinking about it. Wasn't District 9 and Elysium both Sony movies, and Chappie, I think, right?
Yeah.
They're all Sony movies. So, I mean, he had, at the same time he was involved in Xbox stuff, he has been with Sony probably longer. So,
well, those are my thoughts.
Well, I think Sony is better.
What did the gamers think? What do you guys think?
Sony in general is better at acquiring exclusive talent in terms of buying studios and recognizing superior creative forces. So I'm not surprised that they picked Neil Blomkamp, especially after seeing Chappie. How could you not? But Huck, what do you think of the film?
I had similar thoughts to Jay. I don't know if I thought any of the performances really blew me away. to be honest. I thought everyone was just fine, kind of like the same sentiment for the whole movie. And I watched Wheel of Time recently, so I can't get Randall Thor as a character out of my head for the main bad guy sort of concept. I just kept seeing him as the same character.
Asha Stradowski?
Yeah.
The other racer?
Yeah. On the gold team. I was also glad that they actually told a pretty complete story. I was worried in that first half, as it just like kept going on, that it was going to be basically like, here is the Hogwarts section of this story, and then we won't actually see his actual racing career until movie 2. But they did tell it in one movie, which was nice. And I also wasn't really, like Jay was saying, there wasn't much in terms of, the relationships and the characters. Like, all the personal stuff kind of was just background. Like, I think if you threw away the girlfriend, even you threw away the parents, you threw away the brother, like, you could
focus on gaming, bud. Why are you talking to these other people? They're losers. Play games.
But I just mean they kept trying to play off these like emotional things, like, oh yeah, the girlfriend shows up, and then she shows up at the end, and then the dad shows up. But like, it wasn't really earned. Like, I didn't really feel that much when they showed up and like had their touching moment. It's kind of like, okay, well, I mean, the guy was ghosting his parents for like, I don't know, 6 months straight. And then he's gonna like shows up and, you tried so hard or whatever. Like, I don't get it. I'm not buying it.
I totally agree. I feel like the romantic relationship did not need to be there whatsoever. It just added some runtime, and I really don't see the point at all. The parents, I also completely agree that they should have been a bigger factor, especially when he's injured at one point. Like, the fact that their moment doesn't happen till well after that feels like very strange placement in terms of how that would happen in reality.
Yeah, you think the parents would fly there and like be waiting outside the hospital room door, not just spamming his phone.
Yeah, or like Nissan would send them or do something, right? Yeah. So that's the kind of contrived stuff that didn't really make sense. I was surprised afterwards to see like how true, quote unquote, this story was. I thought they were embellishing a lot, and it's more accurate than I would have given it credit for. So I think I actually got the most emotional during the end credits, showing like the real person that did that stuff, to the point where I just wish this was a documentary about that real person. I think it would be a better film. But in terms of cinematic stuff, I did like a lot of the camera work, in particular, recreating the iconic rear camera, third-person camera for Gran Turismo. I thought that was excellent, and a nice little nod to the game. The tracks, in terms of the gaming stuff, were pretty good. Some sound design, a little too much. Visually, some of the HUD elements and graphics, I thought were terrible, and I don't know why they weren't the official Gran Turismo graphics. For example, when he escapes the police at one point in the movie, it's like cop avoidance badge shows up on the screen and goal achieved.
That was like, one of my favorite scenes, that chase scene. And then they kind of ruined it with that graphic thing at the end. I know they were trying to say like, oh, he was thinking about it like a video game, but really,
was that stuff straight out of the game? Like, no. Like, that's never been.
No, that's like a Need for Speed thing, if anything.
Yeah.
The gamers are pissed.
Yeah.
The gamers are pissed. Oh no.
Neil didn't do his research.
But to be fair, Gran Turismo doesn't have cop chase levels in it, does it?
No, doesn't.
No. So
maybe it's like, okay, well, they can't put a Gran Turismo thing up there because Gran Turismo is probably like, well, this is a commercial for a game, dudes. We don't want people thinking that you play this game to learn to outrun the police.
Yeah.
But can I just add something? No, I
just have to finish a thought.
I'm the guest. I just want to add something. No, fine. Go.
I just want to say they after the cop avoidance, they say goal achieved, and they have an image of a trophy. And like, the obvious thing to do there was to have a trophy pop in the movie for beating the cops or doing something. Like, if you're gonna, all they do is like product placement, and everything has to be Sony branded, even the worst things. And like, that is You didn't pop a trophy in this movie? What are you doing? What an absolute fail.
You just gave yourself your new nickname for Game Junk, Papa Trophy.
I like it. Perfect.
It's like Ghost connected. It's video game connected. It's perfect.
Thank you. This has already been a very fruitful episode.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay. You were saying something.
I just wanted to say that it felt like, especially I guess as someone who doesn't play the game, but everything, I never got a sense of him being particularly good at the game. The only way you understand that is people's reactions to him playing the game. And those are always way overplayed. Like, you know, even during the races, it never felt like they constantly had to give you a signal when you should care about something happening, or when someone's close to winning, or something bad is going on, by cutting to the people in the pits, or the people watching being like that. The Le Mans, well, near the end, they're asleep. The friends are sleeping. They wake up and someone's like, how's he doing? Where? And the other person's like, he's doing amazing. And like, that's how you understand that he's doing well, not based on what we're seeing on the track, but how people are reacting to what's happening on the track. And even more so with the video game stuff. Like, the only real sense of any sort of particular skill is when he has that moment with his dad where he's like, I'm not following the line because I'm trying this to see what happens. I don't know.
But I feel like that's a problem with racing movies in general. Cause like, I don't know anything about racing, and it's hard, I think, to get across some of the subtleties of like what makes someone a good racer, because you're just going in circles, right? So like what makes you better than someone else?
Whoa. You just, okay, I was helping you get to the DMZ here, but I think anyone who likes racing just dropped off, dude.
Ooh, easy there. Dwy guy.
I know that's the wrong thing to say, but I mean,
you're talking NASCAR,
I want
confusing
the movie,
it with Indy. Look out.
I want the movie to explain those things to me. And, you know, like, there's a few things, but in a way it feels more of like an ad for the game than you know, how good he is. Cause like one of the things was like, he knows that what's the term? The brakes are glazed or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know, that game must be really amazing if you can tell in a game when brakes are glazed and it actually translates to real life. Right. Like, that's what I got out of that.
I think I didn't get that. It was more that he hit the brakes and it didn't respond the way he expected it to. So that could be the only outcome. Like, it wasn't that he failed to brake. There was actually a mechanical failure, which never happens in the game. It's always accurate. So,
yeah, I guess that could be.
That's
I
how
assume that was part of the game or something, maybe too.
Oh, I read it like Sean, like he learned that term from the game because it would happen in the game occasionally, kind of thing.
I mean, I don't
think that can happen.
I should say here, I haven't played a Gran Turismo game either. So I really...
The video gamers.
It's interesting. I was like, oh, maybe I should download a Gran Turismo game and try one out. And I assumed there would be one on PlayStation Plus. There's none on PlayStation Plus. What's up with that? Like, that seems like a bit of a weird thing. Like, maybe not GT7, but one of the...
But you should buy it anyway, so you can play it in VR.
Yeah, I'm not that into racing sims, but I will say, in terms of this movie and what it is, I think it's a cool idea for a quote unquote video game adaptation, right? Like, instead of coming up with some fictional story that just works in elements of the game, like, this is a true story that it's a pretty interesting story, I think. And I think, like you said, Frank, I was surprised how kind of accurate it is for the most part. Like, I think the main thing, like, I don't think he actually won at the end or something, but and I guess there's been multiple of these competitions, right? Like, I think he was the third winner of GT Academy or something.
Yeah, he wasn't the first. The Le Mans finish, I believe, in real life was third place. but he's still gone on to do a lot of races and stuff.
It was
like
third
that.
in the movie too.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was first.
I thought it was first.
No,
checked
usually
out-
when you're in first, you are in the middle of the podium at the highest level.
Yeah, but when they show the photo finish, they're like showing him finish.
Yeah, it was between third and fourth.
Oh, okay.
Because he just had
Yeah,
to make
that-
the podium.
That's right.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense. And so it's even more accurate than I thought it was. But
Yeah.
in terms of the visualizations, some stuff really works and some stuff didn't. Anytime they would deconstruct or construct a virtual car around the seat, I thought that was kind of extraneous and didn't add a whole lot. It felt like bells and whistles and didn't love it. How they kept track of the positions of racers and the presentation of the races and the finishing, the montage, I thought that was pretty slick for following some of that stuff. The one thing, Jay, how would you describe the look of this movie? And like, it seems like, is it like very high key? Like, how would you like? It's very like it actually looks like the game. It reminds me of the look of Gran Turismo, which is like very clean, hard edges. Like, what else could you add to that? Because I can't really describe it.
I guess that's what I was referring to before with the digital look that didn't necessarily, not saying digital as like a necessarily bad thing, but it does feel like some of the lighting, when I saw the trailer, I was trying to figure out where the Blomkamp was in it. And he does seem to like to use like fluorescent office lighting a lot, like it reminded me of
My house.
of your house and what's his name in Hugh Jackman, like where they work in Chappie.
Oh yeah.
So he still has kind of faux documentary elements in there a little bit. And I think lighting is part of that people aren't overly, stylishly lit. But once you're on the track, I guess I would imagine they're trying to recreate the look of some of the nice, visuals of the game, I would think. But that actually took me to something that I thought, okay, this seems like a note from Sony. Like when you get to the end of the race and there's a celebration, and for a moment it cuts to what I assume is the video game, video game character celebrating.
Like when it's the sunset.
Yeah,
I think that's actually a
And the racer
screenshot
like
from
stand there.
when you complete the campaign in Gran Turismo 7.
Mhm. That read to me like, PlayStation people, what do you think about cutting to a shot from the game for a moment just to like really tie it together? And it just stood out to me. But
Especially because I don't think they established that image earlier in the movie. If he won a race or did something in the game, like that would be a nice way of connecting it, but it comes out of nowhere at the end of the film. It is very strange. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But Sony in general, we've alluded to it, how blatant, and it's not just this movie, but all their movies, like every TV is Sony. It's every laptop is what was their laptop brand, Vio or something that
Yeah.
probably only existed to appear in Sony movies, because I don't know a single person in real
well,
life.
that's where the MP3 player stands out so much, because no one would buy that. Well, maybe Sean might, but the as a gift, like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, David Harbour has the Sony Walkman. Like, I mean,
Does he not have a phone? Does David Harbour not have a phone?
Yeah, I mean, it's like stands out as like nostalgic product placement or like brand kind of reinforcement there. So
I need to know if Sony owns the rights to Kenny G and Enya. Because they said he still
I'm sure
listens
they do.
to them before the race is still. So I don't know if that was an embellishment trying to up that or use their own catalog. But I don't think so. I think that's actually legit. I think that those might be other labels.
Looks like it's Warner.
Because
Music.
that feels like it was part of the true story. But
It was. They said it in one of the title cards.
Yeah.
Right?
If anything,
Yeah.
maybe that's why they picked that story, because it only used Sony music. we're good. We got it all covered.
Speaking of branding, one thing I found weird was they have that Porsche GT3 car, and I found that odd because the whole movie is about Nissan, and you have this guy driving a Porsche, and I was like, does Nissan own Porsche? And I don't think they do, but I wonder if they literally picked that car just because the initials on the car are GT3, Gran Turismo 3. Like, is that why that car is in there? It seemed kind of weird to me.
This kind of brings me to another question I have, and I don't know if you guys have the answer, but like I think the cars they drive are like the model or whatever the classification I think is called GT. I think in the first bunch of races, but then Le Mans I think is different, isn't it? And I was wondering, like, do drivers normally like just go back and forth between different types of cars? Like, I feel like that would be a big transition.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if we're going down the, like, how accurate to racing is this story? I mean, I guess they did finish third. So maybe it is possible. Maybe that's even an advantage of simulation racing, that you use all different types of cars, right? Like when you do a Gran Turismo campaign, you're doing front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. Like you have to switch between cars all the time. So maybe that could have been a competitive advantage. I don't know, but there's other things relating to racing that felt extremely unrealistic. Like when they accelerate at the beginning of a race, they always fly back in their chair. Did anyone else notice this? I'm like, wouldn't you already be leaning back? Like, I don't understand why they always, even at the end of the movie,
They're feeling the G's, man. G's.
I'll be honest, I flew back in my chair when I was watching it. It was intense, but wasn't that mainly the first time they're in the car? It demonstrate the difference between them being in a Carnox Legend gaming chair versus in the seat of a real car.
At first, yes, it was, and I was fine with that. But I believe it happens a couple of times towards the end of the movie too. And I don't know how accurate the accident is with the liftoff with the. I'm guessing it was a different accident in real life, because that seems pretty hard to. I don't know, like how it happens in the movie. Like
I think that does happen.
I'm sure it can happen. I don't know it. They would know about like what speed. He'd have people in his headset. They'd be monitoring that speed. They'd know. They even say it has a nickname for like launching people there. So I feel like they'd be more cautious about it. That seemed strange, but maybe it did happen. I'm not sure.
Oh, that driver was a renegade. He wasn't a real driver. He was a sim.
Yeah, I love that. There's an anti-sim movement talking about after the race, and I don't know. The performances were generally good. I thought Orlando Bloom was pretty bad, especially at the beginning of the movie. He was like really hamming it up and like overacting big time. The rest were good. I'm not a huge David Harbour fan, but I thought he was really good in this. I actually thought he, you know, he's not Robert Duvall in Days of Thunder, but he's, you know, halfway there. It's just still pretty good.
He didn't have a lot to work with, and what he had to work with, I think he did a good job at being likable and you know, having some sort of relationship with this kid.
Yeah, their relationship is the only one you really care about for the most part.
Yeah.
The other ones are not really there. So I wish they just would have focused on those two a bit more and a little more with the parents. They feel like strangely absent.
Especially Ginger Spice. I mean, come on.
Is that who the mom was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Jerry Horner, formerly Hollowell.
The point of realism, I would be curious to know what the conversations were in regards to like the idea of taking someone out of the sim world, putting them in the real world, and how far they were willing to go to demonstrate the differences between those, like the harsh lessons of moving from the Gran Turismo simulation to the real track. Because the more they talk about those differences, the less the Gran Turismo simulator sells as like the most real experience you could have racing a car. So I feel like there could have been a little more tension between those two worlds, but they kind of glaze the brakes a little bit on that. And it feels like maybe there's a consideration there of like, you can't help but watch a movie like this and think, okay, how are they protecting the brand? And I think that's part of it, like you can't have this kid end up in a car and be like, okay, this is nothing like the game. I'm out of my element. I have some skills that I could carry over, but this is like starting from scratch in so many ways. Cause then everything at the beginning seems like not as real or not as much of a selling point, I guess.
Well, I must say, like, I have a buddy who's big into racing games. I don't know if he plays Gran Turismo or some other game, but those racing wheels that like the kid buys at the beginning, they are really intense. Like they have feedback on the turns. They have like, they shake when you're going over gravel and stuff. Like there's a lot of feedback in that could transfer, quote unquote, to like a real driving experience. You have the foot pedals and everything, brake clutch, all that stuff, all built in, just like, and I've seen like now the kid in the story didn't have this, but he has like 3 monitors that go around him so that when he's racing, he has like peripheral vision as he's racing. So he actually can like look in his mirrors, quote unquote. So, I mean, these people that are into racing games where they will buy a wheel like that, they actually probably have some real world skills that would transfer into a race car. Now, obviously the G-force and like the strength and the endurance to go as long as he went would never transfer, but they did show the training aspect of that once he had made the team. So
they should have had like, when he plays, he eats Doritos, and when he's in the car, he's like, when he's thinking back, like to being in his seat in his bedroom and his dad coming in, and it kind of gives him a little. They should have had a little bag of like his cup of Doritos or Cheetos or something next to him in the car, so that whenever he feels too in the real world, he's like at home and he eats the Doritos. That
gives
would
him
have
like a little extra bit of grip on the wheel or something.
With the dust, a little extra product placement in there.
Unfortunately, Sony doesn't own or have any existing partnerships with any snack companies, so that would be tough to do. Tough to get that in there.
So just while we're talking about the peripherals, I just wanted to ask about, when he does the actual entry race or whatever, he goes to this arcade or something to play, right? I was curious, like, is that a thing like that they have like the exact same game, but it's just like the arcade version and maybe they have better peripherals there? Like I would think if this guy's spending money on this like amazing setup at home, like wouldn't he be better off playing at home?
Yeah, I think I read that didn't happen in real life. People got selected through the game itself, playing at home and those types of things. Or there was like organized contests. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense. There is stuff
maybe
like
to control it, so like you can't cheat or something, maybe. But
I don't think so. But I wouldn't be surprised if that does exist somewhere. Even Nintendo does. Like they take the Mario Kart games and other things and turn them into arcade versions. So it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I've never.
I would love to see that. Someone learning to drive through Mario Kart and then having to do Le Mans. That would be amazing. But did you like the moment where the guy who runs that video game cafe is walking around and he's like, "What a beautiful sound! The clicking of keyboards, or whatever he says, or the clicking of a mouse."
Buttons clicking, sweetest sound.
He should.
He's a real gamer.
I wish he was a real person, because I'd send him a link to that mechanical keyboard record that I have on Apple Music, where it's just mechanical keyboards recorded. It's pretty sweet. I'll send it to you if you want to use it for outro music.
Okay. I don't know if we want to get into spoiler stuff, but we kind of are.
I already did.
The one thing that was strange to me was the Le Mans race itself, where now it's
are we officially entering spoiler territory?
Yes, I think so. But all of a sudden now there's 3. It's a team of 3 racers. that alternate. And all of a sudden, these other people that we haven't really seen since the training, that I presume have still been working and getting better at racing. They didn't just come back and race Le Mans.
They did say they were on the lower circuit. So like
Okay.
basically tier 2 racing or whatever.
Because they would be pretty critical to winning that race. I think it's a 24-hour race and it's like split 3 ways. So they, didn't get a ton of recognition, which it's a movie. I don't mind that much. But the kind of hook of the film and keeping it related to video games is this idea of following the racing line. So in Gran Turismo, there's a line an optimal line on a track. And, when you play the game, you don't always follow the line because the AI racers are making mistakes and, you bump them with your car, stuff you wouldn't even do in real life. And I don't think it makes sense that the way he wins is by not following the lines, because like these are professional racers. They would know not to follow the line as well. Like it's not like they're robots. They're not AIs. That might work in a video game where they just follow the line literally. But in real life, people change what they're doing, adapt, and they would be aware of that strategy as well. They're professional racers and have been for a long time. So while I don't hate it in terms of video gamifying, like the plot of the movie at the end, it makes no sense whatsoever.
There's also not much in terms of reaction to the inclusion of a sim racer into this world. It mainly is
villain, the like extreme.
Yeah, it's mainly focused on this villain guy, but seeing as it's based on a true story, I would have liked to have maybe seen a little bit more on the controversy of this kid coming in, and it's almost like the inverse of AI, where it's a kid trained by AI who it comes out into the real world and is threatening other racers who train in the real world. That sort of like difference of outside of the lines thing, that difference of approach doesn't really add up to anything. He's just another racer for the most part.
Which I would think that's how it played out in real life. Like if you can race or set a certain time, it doesn't really matter. If they qualified for certain races and set lap times and they have a money and a sponsor and a team and a license, I think that's what it would be treated like. Yeah, whatever. Anyone can race as long as they meet the minimum requirements for it. And I probably doubt there was much of a backlash. And I bet all these other like professional racers train virtually as well. Like I'm sure they don't only do stuff in cars. Like I'm sure they would do simulations and learn different things when they can't be on a track. So I think there's probably more overlap than the movie lets on.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, I was actually thinking about the main character in this movie and how, he talks with his dad about how, this is all he's ever wanted all his life and everything. And it's like, but this guy has never really done any racing in a real car before. Like if you're dying to, like, you try any way you can. You're not like, this guy doesn't even know that a Gran Turismo contest exists. Like, I think you would be doing some real driving at some point.
Yeah, I think in the real story, it wasn't like as much of a dream that he always had. He wasn't obsessed with racing. He liked it and he was really good at the game. And I'm guessing, he drives the real car in the cop escape. So I think he is not like he's driven a car. He doesn't know it's not like he doesn't know how a car works. He's never been too afraid to get behind the wheel. He can drive. He's good at driving and he focuses on the simulators. So
they do say, he says something to the effect of, even if he could end up in on a pit team or like it doesn't feel like, I'm sure he wants to get to being a racer, but it doesn't feel like he's like narrowly focused on that. It does feel like he's prepared to work his way up or even just end up being someone taking part on a smaller scale. But yeah, the big believability thing to overcome with this movie is how someone who plays a video game at home can translate those skills to the real world. And obviously it's based on a true story, so that happened. So there is a way to do that. I just didn't think it was demonstrated very well in the film, outside of the few little moments that we've already mentioned. And because also, if they underplay it, if it's like he's too easily, the game too easily translates into the real world, then it's not that thrilling because there's nothing to overcome.
Yeah, even the idea of the racing line and not following the line at the end kind of undercuts the idea of the line in the game itself. If that's not the best way to do it, why is that the line in the game? Like it doesn't even, it breaks down under scrutiny. And
yeah, like I guess I interpreted it as, and having never played the game, I don't know if this is the case, but I interpret it as like, this is your optimum kind of like, if you just want to, middle of the road, like keep your pace, you would follow that line. But if you want to make moves, you go outside of the line and do other stuff.
The racing line is the optimal path. It's so you have the best entry and exit angles, and you maximize your exit velocity, which is the most important thing, which can vary based on, your acceleration and how you tune your gears and other aspects. But for the most part, you want to follow that line. The only time you don't is when you're hoping someone else makes a mistake, or you're trying to fake them out or make them think you're doing one thing and then do another, which, I mean, that type of stuff exists in Days of Thunder, which again, I should say, even the rubbing thing at the beginning there's something similar to Days of Thunder. The idea of the accident and the recovery, it's not quite as direct as like Robert Duvall's guilt about why he like got out of racing and stuff like that, or why the father wasn't in racing. So there's so many parallels, and I love Days of Thunder, but it just felt a little too close to that movie. I could use some diverging here and there.
I also felt a lot of the struggles or conflicts or drama was overcome fairly quickly and fairly easily, which suggests that happens in favor of getting back onto the racetrack as fast as possible. Like the accident, that to me was the main potential for like true drama in terms of the reality of racing in the real world and the simulation. And it just doesn't really hit that hard. No. And it doesn't last that long. Like even in Days of Thunder, for him to get back behind the wheel and get his sight, and the Michael Rooker character, like that's a big part of the movie. Like getting past that, and the moment when he like drives through smoke, and it's the score kicks in, like it has feeling that he's gotten past something. And like Jay said, this just kind of just happens very quickly. It's resolved almost immediately after the accident.
I mean, I don't disagree that it goes by pretty quick. I guess the one thing I would say is it does have that extra layer of, like you were talking, Jay, that they don't really get into the, like, is it good that there's sim racers competing? That was the one thing where they had that extra little bit of like, well, yeah, is it because he's a sim racer? He doesn't know the car well enough. Like, is this unsafe because he doesn't have the experience? That was the only thing that added a little bit of interest to that happening. But, you know, in terms of the runtime of the movie, this was about the point where I was like, I paused it to go to the bathroom and I was like, there's still an hour left in this thing. And I think, you know, it is too long, but at the very least, because it's Le Mans and that race is a long race, I think the runtime kind of works for that. But yeah, it's weird because, like you said, some things fly by, but it's like a 2 hour, 15-minute movie or whatever. So you would think they would have the time if they need it.
It's also weird that it ends with that race. And unless I missed something, maybe there's a little brief moment near the beginning, but we just, like, it's a very different style of race. And for him to transition out of the races that we're seeing him in, where he has this accident, to a 24-hour race, the way that they, I guess, throw a line in so that you accept it as, oh yeah, I've played these tracks all the time at home. And it's like, well, did you play them for 24 hours straight? Like what? There's something
there
different.
There are endurance races in Gran Turismo. They're not 24 hours, but there are.
But that would have been great to see, or like to establish so that there's a direct one-to-one of here's how he handled it. It also, this maybe is just as cliched as, what some of the ways the movie works now, but seeing like at the beginning a race where he fails every time, like a particular track where he fails, and then he ends up on that track near the end, and something about being in reality helps him win where he couldn't in the game, like something like that. But it's all pretty straightforward.
It's like turning your wheels the opposite way in cars. You got to get out there. You got to feel it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's counterintuitive.
So I have one other question about the video game, and I wasn't sure if this. So, like you were mentioning before,
The video
Frank,
gamers.
they have this thing where, like, when you're seeing the progress of the race, and when they kind of pass somebody, they do this kind of brief freeze frame almost, where it like pops up like what position he's in now, and there's the sound effect that plays, which I only know as like the menu, like the PS5 menu sound effect. But is that like a sound effect from Gran Turismo, or what? Like what?
Many of the sound effects are from Gran Turismo for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Some were, some weren't, but there's a lot that I heard. I'm like, okay, yeah, I recognize that for sure. I've only played really 1, 2, and 7 extensively, so I'm certainly not a Gran Turismo expert, but I did feel like I wish they leaned in harder to making it feel like the game. Even the graphics felt like movie versions of some of the graphics. I wish they would have used more of the actual overlays and some of the interface elements from Gran Turismo. I actually think they're like, these are a little more gaudy than the ones that are actually in the game.
All right.
There were some other Gran Turismo nods. I feel like when they're in Japan earlier, the sections of roads are really similar to one of the tracks. Some of the Japanese tracks. Why can't I think of what's the Nur track?
Well, I mean, all the Gran Turismo tracks are going to be modeled after the real world version. So they probably went to the real world spot on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just the one where the action happens. That's like an iconic Gran Turismo track. Yeah. Nürburgring, and that I think that's where he actually had the accident as well. So it's kind of weird, like that this wasn't done earlier. Although I guess that happened in 2015, so maybe it couldn't. It is a pretty legitimate, true story. But again, I would have rather seen a documentary, and for reasons where the villains are so cartoony. Anytime someone has to, like, they keep calling him noob and all that stuff, like that was the worst stuff, where it's like, I'll be in your pit crew anytime, noob, and all these things. Like anytime they try to enforce a villain, and there's about 3 or 4
you can include Orlando Bloom in there.
Exactly. 100%. Like that stuff was terribly done. And which makes me think in real life, it probably people were a little more into the idea. I don't think people really cared, would be my guess.
Yeah, it was probably like, hey, this is going to bring new interest to the sport, so why not? But I did check, and the accident says he did catch air, and that was the cause of the accident.
Okay. This is the most accurate film ever made.
I also, speaking of the villains, like I was just waiting for the Randall Thor guy to get knocked out. Like I thought the lead was going to do it, and then I thought the Stranger Things guy was going to do it, and no one ever clocked this kid. And again, a chance where they could have added some sort of conflict, and they just avoided it. You knock a guy out, there's going to be some repercussions they're going to have to deal with, a suspension maybe or something, and they just kind of avoided, the major conflict. I know they got into like a little shoving match, I kind of felt it was like, like, hold me back, Dad, hold me back while I attack this guy, and don't let me go though, don't let me go. Like it felt kind of fake. Like he didn't actually want to do anything. I don't know what that was. I don't know. It just didn't feel legit. It didn't feel like there was ever actually going to be any conflict between any of these villains, except on the track. And then even on the track, there wasn't really that much, to be honest. Like I was expecting more from these villains, and nothing really happened, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the least interesting stuff usually is in these movies is not what's happening on the track. Like having just watched Ford v Ferrari recently, same race, and similar in that, they're driving a car that's not meant to be driven or a company that doesn't normally drive cars in races like this. But all of the stuff off the track, the conflicts off the track, are what make that interesting, and I guess earn your attention when they're on the track and have you actually caring about what happens on the track. With this, I feel like that villain is designed to make you want to root for someone on the track, but they're so it's such a non-character. They're so cartoony that it does nothing for me, anyways, on the track. I would have rather they kept maybe like a friendly competition with another driver, or if it was more about, the difference between the real world and the sim world, but the conflict is more his own internal conflict, or, him second guessing his abilities, especially after that accident. It's weird because David Harbour is just like, listen, it's not your fault. I killed someone too on the track. And you just got to get over it, dude. And that's like the weakest part of the movie is them forcing this kid through this trauma just to get him back on the track for the finale of the movie.
Yeah, 100%. But I thought they would lean in more into soundtrack stuff from Gran Turismo. I was like, was Black Sabbath in one of the Gran Turismo games? And I don't think it was. I found David Harbour was the one who wanted to use Black Sabbath. So that is actually definitely something I brought to the role. In fact, it had been written, I think, initially as like Guns N' Roses. It was Axl Rose. And I was like, no, this guy's angrier and weirder. Let's make it Black Sabbath. Because when I moved out to the East Village right out of college, I had a buddy who introduced me to Black Sabbath's first album, and it changed my life. That album is stunning. We use a couple of tracks from it for the movie. There's like iconic, like how do they not have Turbo Lover in this movie? And some other songs that are just go-to bangers from the Gran Turismo games. That's a missed opportunity from my perspective.
Yeah, that's surprising. Especially if there's Sony songs.
I don't know if they are, but I thought there'd be more of that stuff. I actually thought there'd be more nods to the game than there were. Well, I don't have much else to say. Do you guys have any other last thoughts for Gran Turismo?
I don't think so.
Better than expected. It's actually good. Tell your friends it's actually good.
Well, I would have to wrap it up with one question. Is this the best video game movie ever made?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Between this and Doom, I think.
Yeah, Prince of Persia. Sean, you love Prince of Persia, right?
Yeah, it was my go-to for a while there. This might be better than Prince of Persia.
Are we missing one that's actually good? That's like loosely.
I mean, I really like the Tomb Raider movies. I also didn't mind the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So okay. Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 1. Come on,
the new Mortal Kombat I liked more than this.
I haven't seen that.
All right, so still a lot of opportunity out there to make a great video game movie. Well, I think we've said it all. Let's get to the star ratings. I will give Gran Turismo a 3 out of 5.
I will also give it a 3.
I will give it 3.5.
Well, I'm going 3 myself. 3 out of 5.
Well, I think that's it for today's show. Oh, yes.
Oh, that kind of
Now
cut
we
out.
need-
That kind of cut out for me. You might have to play it again.
That's all right. Well, let me. Now we need a Sega Rally movie. That will be the ultimate video game film. Let's make it happen, Sega. I can't wait till we're so desperate for anything with video, like any IP. We're just getting into the lowest of the low video games. It's going to be the best.
I should mention the Vinegar Syndrome partner label releases. One of them is starting to release video game content. And I don't know that it's necessarily something you'd be interested in. I think it's just like physical releases of certain popular YouTubers.
Oh, okay. I did see someone I got an ad on Instagram for a company that's selling it's almost like a museum for games, and they're doing special editions for really influential games, I think, or maybe they're just talking about them. I got to look it up because they were talking about the one. It's one of the first scrolling games, and they're kind of looking at it from a historical perspective. So I got to.
Is this the digital? What do they call it? Is it like the making of Karateka? And
that's the one. Yeah.
They're the same people that did Atari 50, and I think there's another one, but it's kind of interesting.
But they released the game as well, right? Like a new version of the game, or yeah.
ETR Media is the label on Vinegar Syndrome site. They released, there's one called Pretending I'm a Superman, the Tony Hawk video game. There is Slopes Game Room, Sega The Complete History Volume 1. Do you know this person?
No.
ETR Media, Golden Era, a movie about the game that defined a generation.
Yeah, there's that one too.
I just want to
a
say,
lot of these.
If there are any movie people listening that are looking for an IP, Epic Dumpster Bear and Jank Brain are ripe for the picking right now. You can hop on that bandwagon early and really get in where the money's at. Epic Dumpster Bear.
Yeah, it can't be worse than Cocaine Bear.
They can't.
Okay, let's get into what we played. Sean, you played anything this week?
Well, I did. So I finished Starfield. I don't know if I have much to say or to go into detail here, but I enjoyed it. I kind of, at a certain point, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to finish it because I want to move on to other stuff. But I generally did find that the side quests were more interesting. There was a couple cool ones towards the end in the main storyline, but I enjoyed it. It was a good game. Maybe I'll go back to it one day. I don't know. And I did.
What about the story itself? I've been hearing really good things about the main story. Is it overhyped, Sean? What's the deal here?
Maybe a little overhyped. I appreciate the main storyline. They're kind of trying for a 2001 kind of philosophical thing, and I don't know that it totally works, but there's a couple interesting ideas, particularly with how the New Game Plus works in the game.
I heard I had something kind of spoiled for me about a mission that involves multiple dimensions, which sounded really good.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite quests in the game. That was pretty cool. It felt kind of Titanfall 2-ish, but it was cool on its own. And I finished Cocoon. Did you finish Cocoon?
No, I've got about 20 minutes left, I think. I almost finished it for today, but not quite.
Okay. Yeah, that was really good. Really enjoyed that. The main thing I want to talk about, went back under the visor, played a game called Hubris in VR.
I like the title.
And this is it's on sale right now on PlayStation Network. So I played on PSVR 2, but it's kind of just a sci-fi shooter. But I think there was a demo, and I tried the demo, and it impressed me enough to buy the full game. And I think the thing that I thought was cool was it's not really open world, but when you start you're kind of on this alien planet and there's like water and you can just jump into the water and kind of swim around. And the swimming mechanic actually works quite well. I can't think of
this.
Yeah. Like I can't think of any other VR games that have that, but it seems like a no brainer in a way, but like, yeah, it really worked.
Swimming kind of makes sense. Cause I know in like,
I was just going to say, I think Subnautica has a VR version that would definitely have swimming.
But I remember just the brief amount I played, it was just the controller that made you swim, like just the analog sticks. But maybe it also had the worst tutorial ever. So maybe I wasn't fully understanding it. But in something, the Call of the Mountain, the Horizon game, like you had to like run by putting your hands up and down in place. And I was like, this is awful. You could change that control scheme, but swimming actually feels more intuitive. I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing that sold me on it. I mean, it's kind of just a sci-fi shooter. Feels a bit like Halo, I guess, where I'm at now in the game. But I looked up some reviews and it really did not. A lot of people just were not impressed by it. Thought it was kind of bland and boring. But I don't know, man. Like in terms of AAA quote unquote VR games, there's not a whole lot out there in terms of like you just want to play a game that feels like a full, a game that's taking advantage of the full graphical capabilities of the PS5 and stuff. And this kind of did that, so I was enjoying it.
Stuff I'm seeing on Steam is not necessarily blowing me away. It does feel a little generic, but
yeah.
You're the man with the visor, every visor. You love it, so I'll take your word.
Yep, I liked it.
Jay, anything you've played since the last time you were on Game Junk?
Well,
the big one.
What?
On the big one, your new favorite game.
Power Wash Simulator?
Yeah.
Yeah, I finished Power Wash Simulator a few months back and had a lot of fun with it. Just very mindless and simple and addictive. And I do have mixed emotions though, because Power Wash Simulator was the point at which I recognized the new burn-in on my TV screen because of the color of the locations in the game. But I thought, I was like, oh, did they put like some weird like anamorphic long lens flare off of the nozzle of this Power Wash gun? And it turned out it was a burnt in YouTube progress bar. But it's fun. I haven't gotten into any of the DLC for it. I'd like to at some point.
There's some pretty good ones. There's Back to the Future, isn't there? Like the DeLorean.
Yeah.
That's pretty
the Clock Tower as well, I believe.
Yeah.
But
Tomb Raider Mansion, Final Fantasy VII Midgar, I think, or something. Like, you got to get into this, bud. This is
the thing I liked about it is the way it balances small jobs with big jobs. So, you do like a giant kids playground and it takes a while and you finish it. And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to do a little Vespa scooter or something in a garage. And then you go back to something a little bigger and the locations get more and more interesting. And there is like a weird story happening in the background, it seems. There's a volcano that's erupting. And I don't know if that's what they're suggesting is making everything dirty. Like you have to power wash everything because of this volcano that's erupting. But every once in a while in certain levels, you can see way in the background this mountain, like Lord of the Rings style.
Nice.
Yeah. So it would have been cool if, at some point that lava starts flowing into town and you're the only one who can stop it with your power wash gun. Like you have to cool it down before it, but it doesn't go there.
Jay,
though.
I was thinking of you. There's a new game I saw on Steam recently, Pool Cleaning Simulator.
That would be good.
There's a lot of these coming out now. So
I have played lawn mowing simulator or lawnmower simulator. Not as satisfying as Power Wash Simulator. I think because there's too many tools that you have to click through. I just want
Power Wash Simulator has the best mechanic ever made in games, right?
Yeah.
So
aiming and blowing. The way you use certain soaps, and it took me a while this is my thing with video games, is if anything's remotely complicated, I don't do it. And it was a long time before I realized, certain soaps that you buy clean certain things very fast. So I was just using like the no soap, slow and steady process, which is fine because it gave me more time to power wash, which I love.
Yeah, the soaps don't last very long though. It really becomes a simulation game where it's about like understanding the economies of when to buy certain things to get more money to buy the higher one. It's an interesting simulator. I should get back at some point, and VR might be the way.
Is there a VR version?
I believe there's one coming. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Cool.
Huck, how about you? Anything?
Mostly just kept on trying to beat Inscryption. I now think I know what I have to do to beat it, but there's kind of like 4 main bosses, and we were talking last week, I think, that we were getting tripped up on the second boss for a long time. Well, now I'm getting tripped up on the last boss, and I haven't been able to get a run where I get the stuff I want to be able to beat it pretty easily. And I was so close one time, and I made one wrong move and it was over. So I will beat this game. I will go back to it. The runs are pretty short, which is pretty good. Especially now that I have a good handle of like what all the icons on the map mean and which directions I want to take to try to achieve, my best options for beating the game. But I did, after we talked last week, Frank, I did kind of YouTube look ahead and saw some pretty crazy stuff.
Have you even hit that yet?
No, I haven't. That's the thing. I can't. I know what I have to do to get there. I just haven't gotten to that point. So I'm interested to see what that's all about. I just saw one. I was scrubbing a YouTube video and saw it. I was like, "Whoa, don't want to know anymore. I'll get there when I get there."
I think you got a ways to go, to be honest.
I think so. Yeah, from the length of the YouTube video and where I saw that crazy stuff, I was like, I'm not even halfway through this game yet. Yeah. So we shall see if I actually do beat it or if I just get there and then quit. But pretty interesting game.
All right, I played a couple things. Dove back into the Souls-like genre a little bit. The Lords of the Fallen released this week, and I couldn't help myself. I bought it and tried it out, and it was pretty good. It's got a lot of mechanics. You go into this other umbral world and look for gaps and holes, kind of like a bit what Hellblade did, and working with like different perspectives in an environment and all different dimensions. But it's throwing a lot of ideas at you over and over and over again, to the point of when I was done the tutorial, I'm like, I don't know how to do everything in this game, and I feel like I'm supposed to by now. So it looks good though, and I generally like the vibe of the game, but a little too complicated for me right now, especially with Mario and Spider-Man coming out on Friday. So I put it aside, and I instead tried Lies of P, which is another Souls-like, the one based on the world of Pinocchio. And funny.
It's
what it is.
It's a pretty cool world.
Kind of a steampunk Pinocchio with automaton puppets. And I was loving this game. Apparently it was really hard when it came out. I know they've brought down the difficulty a bit, and it's currently at a very nice level for me. And it's in between Sekiro and Bloodborne. It's more offensive based than defense, and there's less variance in play style It's really just through the weapons that you change how you play. So I've really been enjoying that game. It's actually doing quite well, I think, compared to when it first debuted. It's like, I don't know, this could be a lot of money and something that no one picks up on, but I think it's got some legs. It's a pretty good game. So don't know if I'll beat it before Friday. I highly doubt it, but I really enjoyed what I played. And a little simpler too, which I like. Like Elden Ring and some of these other games feel very there's so much to do and the scope is enormous. This one has a nice scope for a Souls-like. So if you like Souls-likes, check out Lies of P. I think you'll enjoy it.
Are you going to go back to Lords of the Fallen? It's a game that's like on my radar because it's one of the first UE5 games that have come out, and I'm interested just to see it from a technical aspect. And like, are there a lot of scenes with like facial capture and like close-up cinematics and stuff like that? Can you
Not really
see any of the metahuman stuff kind of coming through or anything like that?
No, maybe they use that in your character creation where you can have different faces and mix them together, to create a lot of different face options for your character. But I think my character is a mascot. I don't even see that stuff. And to be honest, I was pretty confused by the character creator. Like, it wasn't that functional to me, but it does look really good. I'm not surprised to hear that it's Unreal 4. I had some mild performance issues. Unreal 5, pardon me. Thank you. And I had some mild performance issues on PC. I was running on the highest settings on a 3080, but it was pretty good. Just not something I want to get into right now. And I played a bit more Cocoon, which is still great. So I think that's it. We've done it all. We've said it all.
Can I just say, not to throw, I know you're wrapping up here. You're getting to the.
Well, I think that's it for today's show.
But I did remember I beat Revenge of Shinobi. I just wanted to say it because I beat it, and
you love Shinobi.
I do love Shinobi.
Can I ask if you use save states? Did you play it like in its original form, or were you using, saves and rewind features and that kind of stuff?
I don't do the rewind feature. I do use the saves because the thing that will end a video game for me is having to restart something. You
didn't actually beat Shinobi. You kind of beat Revenge of Shinobi.
Well, I beat Revenge of Shinobi on the Switch via the online service. I did not beat. I beat Revenge of Shinobi hard-wired into the Genesis back in the day. But oh yeah, big Shinobi dude here. But yeah, I love Shinobi. The first one's great. I beat the arcade version of the first one on the Switch using save states. But yeah, where's Shinobi? Like, where are the new Shinobi games?
There was one for PS2, a 3D version.
I don't want that. I just want like a really good follow-up to a side-scrolling Shinobi game.
You might have to
Messenger.
get the.
I have played some Messenger, and that was good.
Did you ever play the Shinobi Legions for Sega Saturn?
No, I didn't have a Sega Saturn. I don't think I've ever played a Sega Saturn game.
I don't own it. It's pretty expensive. But if
next time you go over to Frank's house, he'll have it for you.
Play it,
Yeah.
It's got like this weird, like real, like captured real performers, kind of like Mortal Kombat. It looks really strange. I think you'll hate it.
Well, listen, if it's a recommendation from Papa Trophy, I think maybe I'll have to give it a shot.
It looks like the most recent Shinobi game was for the 3DS, released in 2011. So I don't know what that is, but maybe something.
Time to bring back Shinobi.
And speaking of,
I mean, it is a name for sure.
And speaking of like the Nintendo Switch Online options in general, I'm pretty disappointed with how often they add stuff. It seems like I didn't look at it for, I don't know, a month, maybe 2 months. And I came back and there really wasn't much new. I had like 3 new Japanese games I've never heard of. I had, I think, nothing in the Sega Genesis. Like, I want Cool Spot. Come on, let's go. Let's get a real game in here. Let's get Cool Spot back. And I was just surprised, like very little gets added to that. And I thought they would be rolling more stuff out to entice people. Like, I know was it the Game Boy Advanced? They were advertising Golden Sun was coming soon, and we still do not have Golden Sun, which is a game I am desperate to try out again. And they still don't have it for some reason. They're just holding it hostage for some reason.
Yeah, have you played Shinobi 3 for the Sega Genesis, Return of the Ninja Master?
I haven't, but I have it on either the online store or the Genesis collection. I think it's on the online store.
Yeah, you should probably check that out. And I mean, Strider is always a nice comparable.
Yeah, I played Strider. Me and our friend Chin used to, back in the day, make little notebooks with cutouts from game magazines. Strider was like the one where it was like, oh, this thing looks amazing. So I have played Strider, but yeah, I'll have to go. Is Shinobi 3 the one where they used like Spider-Man and there was like a legal issue? Or was that Revenge of Shinobi?
That was Revenge of Shinobi from what I just saw.
Okay, I think they removed a bunch of that stuff, but yeah,
they just used Spider-Man without getting the rights.
Yeah, they used a whole bunch of characters for bosses. Is Shinobi? Maybe I'm confused. Is Shinobi 3 the one with the dog? Which one is the one with the dog?
You're the Shinobi head, bud.
I don't know the answer to that question. I see for Revenge of Shinobi, enemy characters resembling Rambo called Rocky, Jackie Chan, the Terminator called Hercules in Japan, and Master Attacker in the West, Spider-Man, Batman, and Godzilla called Monster G are present.
Hercules? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, Revenge of Shinobi, that's the one. Shinobi 3 is the one I haven't played. I'll have to give that a go. Oh, wait. No, Shinobi. I think Shinobi 3 is the one that I beat.
I don't think this guy's even beaten Shinobi.
I did, dude.
Oh, boy.
This is falling apart.
I'm talking the one where you ride a horse on one level and the kites.
Shinobi 3.
Yeah. Is it?
Okay.
Anyways,
I'm looking at a screenshot right here. Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, with kites in the air against a gloomy sky where he's riding a horse.
Yeah, that's it.
But
that's the one.
So it doesn't.
Revenge of Shinobi is the one but that's the one I had.
Maybe you should beat Revenge of Shinobi then.
Oh, I don't know, man. I'm confused now.
You know what road you might need to go down? You know what this road is leading to for Halloween?
Shinobi costume?
Splatterhouse.
Oh, I hate Splatterhouse.
That's a good call.
You hate Splatterhouse.
I don't hate it, but it's so slow and like
it is.
I don't know.
All right. Are we done now? Is the show over?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for today's show.
Online, he calls himself
Karnok's Legend. Jay, thank you very much for joining us. It was great. You were great. Why don't you tell us where people can find you?
Oh, well, you can find me at the Film Junk podcast with 2 of the 3 gentlemen here. Andrew, you'll have to come on sometime and talk about one of your favorite films, whatever the fuck that is. And I'm on Instagram, j.w.cheel, and X, J. Cheel, I think.
Beautiful. Sean is on X as Film Junk. Andrew is My Angry Commute and Equilibrium Sis. You can watch Game Junk on youtube.com/Game Junk, and Discord links are there as well. So, give it a like, subscribe, make some comments. We're always checking the comments on there. Thank you for listening or watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.